Welcome to Robotics and Automation News webinars, where you can be part of a global event without leaving your home or office. Attend our live webinars and communicate directly with influential professionals in your industry.
Hello, my name is Abdul Muntakim. I'm editor of Robotics and Automation News.com. In this webcast, I have the opportunity to speak to a senior executive at one of the world's largest automotive technology suppliers, Denso, which started out in 1949 as a spin-off from Toyota and today has a market capitalization of around $40 billion. Bill Foy is Senior Vice President of Engineering at Denso, and he took time out during his recent visit to the North American International Auto Show to talk to Robotics and Automation News.
So we're at the North America International Auto Show, which is here in Detroit, Michigan, USA. And from a Denso perspective, what we are focused to is showing the vision for the future. And we look at that from several perspectives, but we are looking at it from a safety perspective. So what it's like to live in a connected world is one of the areas we are showing. And then secondly, we are showing an experience of what it's like to drive in an automated vehicle and then what you can enjoy in that. So we are focused to connected, autonomous, shared, and electrified. And then the third thing in our booth, if you want to talk about that in particular, is we are showing several partners that we are working with. So in the last 5 years, Denso has become much more aggressive to work with venture capital to strategically position ourselves with partners.
And what's your specific role and your job title, and what are you responsible for, if you don't mind?
I'm a Senior Vice President in charge of North America Engineering.
And I was very interested in, Denso is obviously a massive company, but there's been some sort of a change in emphasis or reorganization or transformation that has been in the press releases that I've seen. Would you mind explaining what it is and what the intention is with that?
Are you interested in the global scale change?
Yeah, in a high-level view to begin with, and then we can talk about the specifics that maybe our readers would be interested in. But to be honest, Denso is one of those companies that our readers are very interested in because you manufacture robots, which is right in our central area, but also or the kind of autonomous solutions that you've been developing and companies that you've been buying have also been of interest to our readers. So a high-level view, and then we can talk about some of the specifics.
Yeah, so high-level view is we have been a company that has been more about silos in our product groups, and to recognize the future of technologies are converging together. So, for example, we have a heating and cooling group, we have a powertrain electrification group, and we have a mobility and electronics group. We decided that we would restructure those groups to have overlap. So, for example, our mobility and electronics group now looks after all groups to ensure that we can create systems for the future that are targeted towards mobility versus just the silo of, for example, only heating or only providing a powertrain component. So that allows us to be able to think differently in order to be able to have a group that's responsible from a total vehicle, total system perspective. So not only architecture, but also for solutions as well. And so that's the main change that we have been going through since April 1st of last year.
And how far has it gone down that change or transformation route? Is it complete now, or is there more to come, more acquisitions, more repositioning, if you like?
Well, I think the organization structure is complete. And from a Denso perspective, we continue to look for partners or potential acquisitions to be able to fill some gaps that we have. So specifically in, for example, in areas such as software, it's very important that we have partners in these areas. So whether those are partners that are supporting us from lower cost countries or whatever that might look like.
And in terms of the kind of systems you're supplying, what has been the change, or what has been the growth area? I don't know that much about the area, but I know that I've heard of advanced driver assistance systems and other kind of obviously that's a catch-all or umbrella term to mean individual, lots of little individual functions that are either autonomous or automated. But what are the areas which you think either growth or areas or new areas that you're excited about supplying to the market in terms of vehicle electronics and automation or autonomous features?
Yeah, I think there's a few areas to talk about. So, of course, electrification is very important for our future. And we've been working in this space for quite a while. And then you mentioned already about ADAS. So ADAS components, as well as moving into what I would call a central brain. So central ECU to control ADAS features and functions in the vehicle. So those types of products are very important. And then I think the third area of the four that I would like to talk about, the third area is about the experience for the user. So if you could imagine that you're not driving or the vehicle doesn't have a driver, what type of experiences we want to create for that person become very important. And what using the 4 or 5 senses, how can we really engage that driver in a different way, or the passenger, I should say, in a different way, whether it's to relax or whether it's to do work or whatever it might be. And then the fourth area that I think is important is services, and how this is an area that Denso is beginning to invest quite a bit for the future, to not only offer products, but to begin to offer services, for example, to a platform provider for the future mobility. So how to get in and out of the vehicle, or how to judge if a vehicle is clean or not when it doesn't have a driver. These types of opportunities we have as well.
I'm of the opinion that the idea of totally driverless cars, level 5, if you like, are just either some way off or maybe will never happen. And yet, companies like yours, lots of companies like yours, are developing ideas and technologies with that eventuality in mind. I might as well ask you, how far do you, some people say it will never happen, but how do you see the idea of driverless cars being on public roads? What do you think the timetable is for something like that to happen?
I think that in the next couple of years, you will already start to see fleets of driverless vehicles, and we call it in a geo-fenced area. So, for example, maybe only in a city area, and only maybe certain routes that are very popular, that you'll begin to see in the next couple of years this already happening. And then if you want to talk about like a vehicle coming to your house to pick you up, in an area that maybe is not part of that geofence today, I think we're a ways off for that. Meaning, a decade or so before we really get to that point where you really achieve level 5 in the sense that a vehicle can drive anywhere. I think we're a ways off on that.
Yeah, I would imagine so, yeah, but I do think it's going to be a good few years before that happens. It's just brilliant that the way cars, the trend towards electrification as well as automation. Yeah, I was wondering, other companies I know are very strong in ADAS and supplying components and systems for that. Is this something new for Denso?
We are an original innovator in this area. So if you look at back in the 90s, we already started to introduce radar systems for advanced control of vehicles. So whether it was for um, following a vehicle at a certain speed or for some early crash detection and stopping the vehicle, we initially were the first ones on the road with that back in the 90s. So it's been in our blood for a long time. And if you understand Denso, you understand that our real strong pillars have been about safety and about environment. And we felt that areas like radar and camera and LiDAR are areas that are very important for safety for the future. So we didn't start off in this area thinking about automated drive vehicles that would one day drive people around automatically. We started off thinking, how do we make cars that are on the road today with the driver as safe as possible, and to create this type of assistance for the driver.
You are in a kind of a really good position to, your company is a really, really good position to answer this. How has the production of vehicles changed? Are there things done differently now? Do the robots have to do different things now in order to make different kinds of cars with more electronics, with less of the I don't know, traditional technologies in them? What kind of, can you give us an insight into how car production is changing?
I think there's a lot of things that are changing in production, and I'm really giving you my feedback just from walking our own manufacturing lines. And when it comes to from a Denso perspective, I would say we first started to use robots more of an assistance for very difficult processes or something that might be considered dangerous from a process perspective. Now we use robots in many respects. So not only to address safety in the plant, but also to address efficiency and then to helping the human. So it's not only robotics themselves, but it's also, for example, even visual, to be able to watch what the operator is doing and automatically check, did they do all the operations they were supposed to? So we're using quite a bit of robotics and optics in our manufacturing plants across the world.
And how big a share of Denso's business is industrial robots itself? I mean, forgive me if I'm sort of being, I don't know, naive or whatever, but because you're associated with Toyota, I imagine that the vast majority of your business is with that one company. I mean, do you supply other companies? What is the broader market for you, for your products, not just industrial robots, but the other things as well, the ADAS and all the other things that you manufacture and make?
Well, let me I don't have the exact numbers for you because my area is mainly the automotive OE products themselves. But I will tell you that the largest consumer of our robots is within Denso ourselves. So we are making many of the robots for ourselves. But then several years ago, we created the industrial group to begin to work with outside companies. So now we have many customers across the world who are using our robots. So our robots, For example, you would not find our robots like in a large robot that moves a door panel, for example, within a manufacturing plant. You're more likely to find our robots in very precise equipment, smaller scale production that requires speed as well as exact location type aspects. So we work with many companies and we have many customers beyond the automotive industry that are looking for these types of solutions. But the percent of business, when you look at a big pie chart, because automotive is so huge, I believe it's less than 2%.
With the ADAS and other things as well, what percentage of business is outside of your traditional partner being? I mean, it is Toyota, isn't it? They mainly supply.
Yeah, 60% of our business is outside of Toyota.
Interesting. And is it geographically, where is it? Is it Asia or other places as well?
Both companies. So we are a global company. So we operate in every region of the world, and roughly that percentage is about the same outside of Japan. And I would imagine in Japan it's a little bit higher.
In terms of North America and the kind of targets or goals that you might have, how do you see things panning out for Denso over the next year or two? I get the feeling that you have taken a fairly new direction, which is almost more consumer facing than it used to be. You seem to be doing more press releases and other things that would appeal to just the general public, would be interested in, like I say, electronics, electrification, the connected home, and all sorts of other things like that. But what are the areas of business that you see growing for you in the North American or American market?
Yeah. So first, I want to just make clear that Denso continues to want to be a business-to-business company. So we have no intention to become a business-to-consumer company. But it is important, as you mentioned, that we continue to survey end customers to understand their needs and to understand where they're going. But for us, the growth areas for us are in mobility and electronics product group, that area of growth. So whether it's the vehicle communicating with the cloud or safety components or display products, that's our largest growth area in North America. And then behind that is electrification, is our second largest growth area. And then the other products that we have will continue to change, but they will remain a pillar for us in North America. So for example, like heating and cooling or wiper systems, these types of areas. And then the final area that we look to grow aggressively is the services area, so connected services. And that will be the final area, but that's starting from almost zero. So to really, its percent growth will be quite a bit, but compared to the billions of dollars of established business, it won't look so big on a pie chart.
What are connected services? If you could give me an example or two, please.
Yeah. So when we look at connected services, it could be something as simple as working with a platform provider to help how a vehicle recognizes a person through, for example, through your cell phone, and then the vehicle you're able to start in a car sharing scenario. Or for example, when you look at like a connected city and the roadside equipment that allows, for example, if you have an emergency vehicle coming and you want to turn all the lights green in a connected city, or you want to look at the traffic patterns in a city and keep certain lights green longer to reduce traffic. These are types of connected products. So basically cloud-based products, so that where we're doing where we're looking at something either on the ground or in the vehicle, and that we're raising up to the cloud is really what we're talking about when we say connected services.
It's just one last question. Because of your background in engineering, I was hoping you could educate me about a bit more about sensors. I'm having to learn more about sensors and the kind of roles they play. I'm led to believe there's sensors for all type. There's a sensor for each and every type of activity. I was wondering if you could give me an insight into how sensors are used in Denso products and Denso. I don't know, so probably not services because they're hardware oriented, aren't they? So it'd be products. But yeah, I was just thinking, sensors is one of those things. Somebody else told me that because they've fallen in price so much, and chips have also fallen in price so much, that's been this sort of driving factor in a lot of the technologies that are being developed now. But I just wondered what your perspective was about these small but very important components in technology.
Yeah, and maybe I'll divide it out for you in two categories. There are the sensors that we've had in vehicles for a very long time that perform a function for the vehicle. So, for example, we have sensors that want to know your skin temperature. So we know that do we need to adjust the heating and cooling to get your skin temperature to where you desire to have it. So that's a very elaborate sensor, or even like a radar is a sensor, or when you think about on a vehicle like the corner sensors to know how far you are from something. These are what I would call the more traditional sensors in vehicle, and they're very important. What's happening in the industry when we talk about sensor prices going down to allow us to be able to do things differently in our life, I think the majority of that is happening outside of the vehicle. So, for example, in your home or in your office. So very easily to know, are you in your office working, or what's the level of milk that you have left in the refrigerator? Those types of sensors, the prices are going way down and becoming available to create a whole connected society. But once you get into a vehicle, sensor prices go up because it has to be a very robust environment. So we're not seeing so many changes in vehicle for these types of sensors, but around us is creating a more connected ecosystem that allows us to have seamlessness between what you're doing at home or at work. And as you enter the vehicle, it allows us to know much more about you. So for example, it could be very easy to automate that you're low on milk in your refrigerator, and it sends a message to your car when you start it. Would you like to go to the grocery store to get milk? Right, but that sensor's at home, but it's communicating to the cloud, which is then communicating to your car.
This is probably going to be a difficult question to answer for you because it's such a big company and everything is important to you. But I was trying, one of the questions I find interesting is what is important in terms of what is more important to develop? Is it software or hardware?
I'll answer it just real briefly. I mean, from a Denso perspective, we believe that hardware, of course, is our backbone, and we are always innovating hardware to be smaller or lighter weight or higher function or lower price, and we continue to do this, and we're very good at that. Where the growth area is for software, and what Denso does very well compared to our competitors is we have a very strong software development process that ensures quality to the end consumer. But where the real big challenge is for the future is as we move to shorter and shorter cycle times, we must integrate agile software processes to be able to do things differently than we do today. So not only is the number of software engineers needed increasing dramatically, but we also have to look at how do we change our process to make it more flexible and agile. So these are the challenges for the whole industry as a whole. But recognize that software growth will be huge in this industry. The number of lines of code that we have in products are greater than like you'd see on an airplane, just in one module. So very significant number of lines of code in automotive.
Thank you very much.
Send us an email at sales@roboticsandautomationnews.com to register for one of our many upcoming webinars. And if you'd like us to host your webinar, we have a range of options, including long-term lead generation packages and marketing campaigns. We look forward to hearing from you soon.